Hi there and welcome to the Daily Briefing for Tuesday, November the 24th. I'm J.R. Lewis with you on KLAM and KCDV Radio and youtube.com/Cordova TV if you happen to be catching the program online. We're going to visit with Mayor Koplin today for some follow-up on this bump in cases that we've had, now up to 11, so one more was found between yesterday and our visit here today. The city has moved to its level 4 warning level, which doesn't call for a lot of mandatory shutdowns and closings, but is definitely moving in that direction if we can't get this outbreak under control. So we'll hear from Mayor Koplin about his perspective on these things and be back then right afterwards to close things up on today's briefing. Mayor, it's been a while for you and I having a visit here. It sort of began with us visiting and has evolved and changed like so many things since we started doing this. How's it been continuing to watch things develop from your chair?
You know, it's been, of course, we're seeing the numbers go up across the country, and some of that is due to more widespread testing, but a lot of it is, frankly, just due to spread. And we've seen that here in Alaska. It's reaching the point where I don't think we can assume that there's better in-state metrics than there is out-of-state. It wouldn't surprise me to see that the state starts lifting its protocols a little bit. Not because there's any less opportunity for spread, but because we've really kind of equalized in-state with out-of-state. So, it's a time to be cautious, I guess, is what I'm feeling.
Sure.
This has proven to be a very, very sneaky virus. From what I've seen and heard, as I have more friends and so forth, that it's still a very sneaky virus, and even following protocols, it's possible to pick it up and not really know how and where.
Yeah. Well, but as we'll get into, I assume, the severity of those protocols are not just they're not just a binary thing. You either will get it or won't get it depending on protocols, but there's some critical gray area with regard to severity. But let's back up from that. What is your kind of your overall mayoral message with Thanksgiving coming up and what's been going on? What is it that you want to let people know?
Well, I think right now we have to recognize we have 11 active positive cases. That's transpired fairly recently and fairly quickly. We do have some community spread going on. So going into the Thanksgiving holiday, we know that right here in Cordova, some of the upticks in caseloads have been the result of gathering, and it's hard not to visit with friends and loved ones during holidays. But there are some things we can do, even if we do gather, that can make a real difference. So my precautionary message, I guess, as mayor is we want to enjoy each other's company. We've learned some new ways to do that, but we need to continue to be cautious, and we don't want Thanksgiving to wreck Christmas would be one way to look at it.
Yeah. All right. So what are some of the things? I mean, I assume you're continuing to participate in regular meetings with doctors at various levels and so forth. What are the areas, where people can focus some attention? Well,
in general, it's better to keep gatherings to family sizes and to our quote-unquote bubbles. 3 smaller groups is much better than one larger group in terms of eliminating spread. But as we do meet, there's some basic precautions. And again, this gets back to some of the protocols we've learned. Good sanitation, washing your hands, especially around lots of food and dishes and surfaces. Keeping your hands off your faces. If it's difficult to wear a mask while you're eating and so forth, and air circulation can come into play, cracking a couple windows or turning on that ceiling fan and helping air to move around the room. And a lot of these precautions really speak to viral load. And one of the things I wanted to remind, I know there's still controversies about masks and how effective and whether they're effective and so forth, but all the data I've seen, the doctors I've talked to that have handled many cases outside of the community and even our doctors here inside the community are saying there's a big difference between someone who gets a very, very mild exposure and a low viral load and their body's ability to build defenses and antigens, antibodies, and kind of respond to the virus, as opposed to those who take a large viral load all at once and they start behind the 8 ball and their body never really gets a chance to kick into gear with its immune system. So it really can boil down to the difference between whether or not you end up in the hospital. So if you do get exposed, minimizing that exposure does make a difference. So.
Yeah, that's a good. I'm glad that's a data point that is making its way into the conversation, because again, people tend to think of the effectiveness of masks as an either or. Either you will get it, and then it's just a coin toss as to how bad it is, versus you won't at all if everybody's wearing masks. That point about the impact of the masks on the severity of a potential case is a good one that hopefully will make people consider that option, a little more seriously.
Yeah, and that's you're just reminding me. I've heard a lot of debates and conversations around who is the mask for. Are you wearing the mask for yourself, or are they wearing the mask for someone else? And in terms of viral load, it's really both, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the latest. There's so many agencies that go back and forth on these things. I can't remember if it was the CDC, or the WHO, or one of them that had been focused primarily on that you were protecting others, and then based on more recent studies, revised that to say there's protection both ways. So we'll just kind of have to see. Now, what kinds of meetings are you still participating in? Is there statewide? Are you meeting with people at the federal level? Is it predominantly local? What's it like now, this far along in the response?
I've talked anecdotally to some friends in Anchorage and that are close to the medical profession. Mostly I've been keeping up with our local dashboards and bulletins and talking with Dr. Sanders periodically and City Manager Helen Howard. And so I've mostly been keeping the pulse locally. I've had a pretty heavy workload the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been focusing on my day job, as it were. But I've noticed, though, I'm getting reminders. A lot of the state's meetings have gone back to their weekly meetings, the fishing industry meetings, and there's starting to be more and stronger conversation and frequent conversations about the distribution of vaccines. Again, this is something that's been in planning for months. I know, the timelines of the vaccine itself have been uncertain, but all of the distribution and all of the logistics have been in planning for quite some time, because it turns out that that's where the real challenge often arises. So there's several positive things I'm hearing as well. The average hospital stays have declined quite substantially. The percentage of people who need to be hospitalized has decreased substantially. Not one, but now 3 pharmaceuticals are knocking on the door of approval of vaccines, and the distribution systems are well in hand and well in place. So we've got some good positive things coming on the horizon, and so hopefully we can do well through the holidays and get ourselves to a better place.
Well, certainly hope so, and appreciate the chance to check in with you. And anything else you want to leave us with here before we wrap up?
No, just be safe and happy holidays.
All right, our thanks to Mayor Koplin for the visit here today on the 24th. A reminder, again, we have 11 active cases and 2 hospitalizations. An important point that Dr. Sanders made yesterday is that hospital capacity is now becoming a more pressing concern, both locally and at the state level, with all the cases that the larger hospitals are taking, not only in their own communities, but from rural communities. They're having to push back against taking now more cases out of their cities, which means the local hospitals have to deal with hospitalizations, and obviously the capacity is very limited. So that's another, just in addition to general health and safety, being aware that the impact on the medical facilities, that's another thing that we need to keep in mind, because they don't just have COVID, but all of the run-of-the-mill medical issues to deal with as well. And if you want to hear Dr. Sanders' reaction to this spike in cases, that was on yesterday's briefing for 1123. This briefing for 1124 will be on youtube.com/Cordova TV as well. I want to thank you for tuning in. Everybody stay safe, and we will see you next time. We'll get regular programming underway now on the Clam and the Eagle.